Ciao and benvenuti to Untold Italy. I'm Josie.
And I'm Katie, and we're here to help you plan your trip to Italy.
Between us, we have many years of travel experience, and we want to help you uncover your own, as yet untold stories and adventures in Italy.
Each episode, you'll hear practical advice, tips and ideas to help you plan your own trips to the magical land of history, stunning landscapes, and a whole lot of pasta.
We'll have interviews from experts and focus on local destinations and frequently asked questions about travel in Italy.
Thanks for listening and make sure to subscribe to our show.
Now let's get started on your regular dose of Bella Italia. Ciao everyone. Today in episode 6 of Untold Italy, we are going to help you plan your trip to Florence and talk about the must-see highlights.
Beautiful Florence. Such a contrast to Rome, isn't it? It's much smaller and less chaotic, and it's full of history, art, churches and beauty. What do you love about Florence, Josie?
I absolutely love Florence because it's more compact. So obviously the capital of the Tuscan region is the home of the many masterpieces, which I love, from the Renaissance, the art and the architecture.
Beautiful, isn't it? It's stunning. Some of the favourite places that you can't miss when you're going there, we're going to be talking about today, and we'll go through them in lots more detail, but my favourites are the Duomo and the Uffizi Gallery. What about you? My favourite is the Galleria dell'Accademia, which displays Michelangelo's David sculpture. So I love that. Yeah, and you can't miss seeing the Ponte Vecchio and the Piazza della Signoria. I think, Florence is just one of those places that's got that atmosphere that you want to go and just wander and explore. And it's like we said, it's just a totally different atmosphere to Rome, and it sort of symbolises the fact that Italy is actually a very new country in terms of being fully unified. There really were separate city-states in the past, and you've got that totally different flavour in Florence than you do to Rome.
Yeah, I think Florence for me also, I love Dan Brown book. So I love walking around Florence and imagining the books that he's written, and because he really explains Florence in many of his books. So for me, I love that. I love the history behind it. But not just Florence, it's the outer region of Tuscany, right? So you can then go out. So it's the starting point of everywhere else that you can go.
Of journeys in Tuscany, yeah. So, and I was always fascinated by the Medici family who ruled Florence for so many years and really created the city as it is today. Such amazing patrons of the arts, and they invested so heavily in the architecture and the artistic heritage of the cities. So that's really my passion, and it's a reason why I've always wanted to go there and go back many times.
Yeah, I love the fact that you can get on a bike and ride around all of Florence. I think that's something that I love doing as well. And it's just easy to get around. So I think where Rome is so big and wide, this is very compact.
Yeah.
And full of different history and amazing art. And I mean, you go to the Uffizi Gallery where you've got Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. So I think, when you think of iconic, amazing art pieces, definitely Florence ticks all those boxes.
Well, it's got it in abundance, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
Okay, so let's just talk about the highlights in a bit more detail so that people know what are the things that they should see when they're in Florence.
Definitely the Duomo. As you come up into the main of Florence, there's the Duomo.
Yep, the Santa Maria del Fiore. It's such a beautiful building, isn't it?
It certainly is. I think the terracotta roof, how big it is, and it just sits really lovely just around the way all the roads lean into the Duomo.
Yeah, it's certainly the heart of Florence, isn't it? And I just love the exterior, that beautiful green and pink marble inlaid exterior, just all covered. It just sort of shimmers, and it gives it sort of like a magical quality as you sort of approach it and also in the distance when you see it from the distance.
Yeah, and it was really interesting, the history behind it. It took 6 centuries for it to be completed. So amazing. So, but you can see the detail of it and why it is there, and it is absolutely pristine.
Yep.
It's immaculately kept and it's pristine.
Well, actually, the first time I saw it was covered in scaffolding, so which is slightly disappointing. But now, obviously, that they really do keep, very, very clean and shining and so beautiful. But one of the things that, you see it from the outside, and it's kind of unexpected to go inside, and it's quite plain compared to other churches in Italy, apart from that magnificent dome built by Brunelleschi. So that's really the centerpiece of the church itself, and you can actually climb that dome, but it's a lot of steps, isn't it?
Have you done that? It's 463 steps, Katie.
Well, that you can certainly earn your gelato for that day, I think. But yeah, you do need to be very fit because there is no elevator to go up to the top there, but the views are spectacular.
Yeah, and also just bearing in mind that the day that you do it, make sure it's not too hot as well, because Florence can get really even hotter as you're waiting as well in to do that. So no elevator, 463 steps. Definitely have to be fit to go up that.
You do. And I think, the Duomo is it's actually a big complex. There's more than just the inside and the outside of the main church to see. So you can go inside the church, which won't maybe take so much time. There is a little museum there that you can go and see. You do need to book tickets if you want to go up to the dome. But you can also see the exterior buildings in terms of the campanile, or the bell tower, and also the Baptistry. So in the bell tower, you can also climb that. That's 414 steps. So that's slightly less than the dome. But it was designed and built by Giotto. So it's an amazing piece of work of art in itself. And also the Baptistry, which is opposite the cathedral, and it's got very famous bronze doors and an incredible gold mosaic interior, which you shouldn't miss either.
Yeah, and just a little tip, which I always like to give. Regarding around the bell tower, you have to line up outside. So again, make sure you have water and a hat, and it is 414 steps. It's quite narrow as you walk up. Definitely worth the view. The view is amazing when you get across it. So I think for all of those that have looked into Florence and seen photos, you definitely will have seen the photos out of the Duomo and out of the top of the bell tower. So definitely.
Yeah, and you do need to book those in advance though, and get a timed entry. I wouldn't recommend just showing up and hoping to do that. You'll be queuing for a long time. So make sure you jump online. We'll share the links as always to those places so you can organise that. Some tour companies include it in the tour, and I think it's a really interesting to understand the architectural and process behind how the dome was built and the history behind the church. You find out so much information. It's so incredible to actually be there and inside the church and just hear about how the dome was made and how important it is to the people of Florence.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, I love tours, and we've spoken about this in other podcasts, but I think here with the history, the rich history from Florence with the Medicis and how it was built and why it was built, I think is really worth doing in this city. How long do you think you should take to do that whole area, Katie?
Well, I think it's a minimum, really. If you're just popping into the Duomo, you can kind of get away with about 1 hour, but I think that's kind of a bit of a waste because it's such important, it plays such an important part in the life of the city. So I think, 2 to 3 hours is a reasonable time to climb the dome and see the Baptistry and the bell tower. And I think, after that, you will have earned your gelato or your big plate of pasta, and you'll really enjoy it. But yeah, it's really, the Duomo reflects the wealth of Florence during the Renaissance, and it's such an important place to see that you shouldn't definitely not miss that. And just not far from the Duomo is actually another symbol of the city that's really enduring, and you will see it in all the photos pretty much of Florence, and that's the Ponte Vecchio.
Yeah, amazing. The oldest bridge in Florence, spanning the River Arno, that winds through the city. So it's an amazing place to be.
Yeah, it's just beautiful, and all the different sort of muted, I guess you call them Tuscan colours that the bridge is painted, the buildings of the bridge is painted in, and they're lined with the traditional jewellers and gold makers of the city that have been there for 700 years. So it's just one of those places where it's a cobbled bridge, it's 700 years old, and there's just beautiful, dreamy views down the river, and across the bridge you can wander over to the Oltrarno district, which is the home to the Pitti Palace, which was the former residence of the Medici family once they got too big and too important to live in the Palazzo Vecchio on the other side of the river. And of course they were joined by the Vasari corridor, which is like an absolutely fascinating piece of architecture. Do you know much about it, Josie?
No, but I know that it's opening very soon, that we can actually go through it.
I believe in 2021, this Vasari corridor is it's a private corridor that the Medici family built to connect the Uffizi Gallery to the Pitti Palace. And what it's just, apparently you could have ridden a horse down it. I mean, it was really, and it goes above the Ponte Vecchio, so it's quite high, and it's very private, so they didn't need to mix with the local people at all. They could keep themselves completely private and go about their business and probably spy on people. I think they used to do that a bit in those days. But it's a very special part of the city, and it'd be very exciting to see that open in a couple of years' time.
And I think this is the sort of thing that Katie has a wealth of information that she even I learned from her a lot about what other things in the city. So for me, we're still learning, we're still exploring different cities. So I think definitely Ponte Vecchio is one of my favourite places to go.
Yeah, and you can just wander over there in about 10 minutes, but you want to soak up the atmosphere there. It's, you see people, having their photos taken and just enjoying the atmosphere, and you can grab a gelato, walk across and maybe buy some jewellery if you feel like getting a memento from home, but they're quite expensive, those jewellers. But of course the craftsmanship is very, very high and it's worthwhile taking a look. So the other place that I think that people the other thing that people want to see is the statue of David. And
yes,
it's probably the most famous statue in the world, I think, and for a good reason. It's the statue of David is 17 feet high, which is over 5 meters, and it was made from a single block of Carrara marble by Michelangelo over 3 years. I mean, it is an absolutely beautiful work of art.
Oh, it's fantastic. Every time, I've been to Florence numerous times, and every time you have to go. You need to go and see it, because I think you once you see it once, you've just got to, you stand there and you go and you take photos of every different part of it. And it's a very impressive sight.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful. That single piece of marble, it's reflective of it. It's just unique and it's special, and it's David's supposed to be the perfect man, I guess, and reflective of the city of Florence, and it's the symbol of Florence, really, and you can see just how much genius went into that statue. And I don't think you can see it from some of the replicas. So there are replicas in other parts of Florence, but the real one, the original, is literally the best. It's actually so beautiful that you have to see it with your own eyes.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is definitely one to visit the Accademia to actually see. David is amazing, and then all the artwork around it. So you've got amazing statues and sculptors in amongst that as well. Yep,
exactly. And it's a really small gallery, so it's quite digestible if you're someone that, gets a bit overwhelmed by art. You can go there and visit it within about an hour, and it's very easy to do. And it's just a short walk from the Duomo, and like most places in Florence, it's very easy to reach everywhere on foot. So it's definitely a highlight and one of those places that you must go and see when you're in Florence.
Yeah, I think the beauty of Florence is that it's so compact. It's not that you're going to be in these museums or galleries for hours and hours unless you want to. And then there's so many other things to do as you're walking around as well.
Yeah, that's right. And so then obviously the next place to talk about, which is one of the most incredible galleries in the world, is the Uffizi Gallery, which is right on the banks of the Arno, just down from the Ponte Vecchio. And this is a priceless collection of art that was amassed by the Medici family and gifted to the city of Florence by the family in perpetuity. So it is just an incredible building in its own right, and it's just full to the brim with treasures, which it's quite astounding actually what you can see there. What are some of your favourite pieces in the Uffizi, Josie?
I love Botticelli's Birth of Venus. I think that is always my favourite when I go to visit. I think the enormity of the Medicis comes to you when you're there, okay, because of the amount of priceless art that they accumulated over their many years. So I think that hits you as well.
Oh, it really doesn't. And you can go and you can see how important Florence was at that time to the world, really, and has continued to be. So my favourite, I love, I guess, the Medusa by Caravaggio. I like those kind of dark, moody paintings that Caravaggio did. And I guess there's so many works by Leonardo da Vinci, and it's just like every room you go, oh, I recognise that piece. I recognise that piece. And it's one of those places where, you know, you have to actually go because you can see a picture of the painting, and you can take your own, obviously. It's selfie central in the Uffizi Gallery. But, you know, you can take pictures, but it just won't.
Doesn't do it justice of how it is, I suppose. You're right.
You can't see the depth, the intricacy of the painting, the light that reflects off it's an amazing thing to do. And look, the Uffizi, it really does get busy, and so I'm implore you to, especially in peak season outside of winter, you really need to book your tickets in advance, and there's a timed entry for Uffizi Gallery, and make sure you do that because it does get incredibly busy. It's quite compact inside, and you will be within a crowd of people. It's also a very good idea to do a tour if you want to learn a bit more about the art too.
Yeah, as I said, big fan of the tours because I think you can be walking past a painting that you don't know the history of, and they give you a really good understanding, and you really understand the Medicis and how powerful they were and why Florence has become where it has, and you understand a bit more about the Uffizi. So I 100% agree with the tour. I'm a tour person. I love it because that's just something. But again, it's all an individual thing. I mean, you might really know and understand the art that you don't need that. So it really goes with what each individual person. Yeah,
I think a minimum of an audio guide is worth doing. I think on my first visit when I was a very poor student, I went along and I hooked up with a group and I learnt so much, and that was kind of an interesting thing because I was hearing about the paintings and the art history, and I really learnt so much that from then I started to become a tour person as well. One place that I do recommend that you go, apart from all the beautiful galleries inside the Uffizi, is also to visit the terrace there, because there are some incredible views of Florence from the terrace, including a really up close and personal view of the Duomo and the dome. And it's a great place to take a little time out and enjoy the outside views of Florence as well.
Yeah, I know, I agree. Now, Katie, how long do you usually take to do the Uffizi?
I think 2 to 3 hours is probably including a stop at the terrace. I get quite overwhelmed actually by the art. As much as I appreciate it, I find it so. I like to think about how the art, just the genius of the people that were doing it and how they managed to portray feelings and emotions in their paintings and get across the time and a place. And for me, I find galleries, I love them, but I do find it a little bit overwhelming. So 2 to 3 hours is ideal. But I guess if you love art, you could probably spend days there.
Yeah. And another place that we both like is the Piazza della Signora.
Yeah, this is an iconic piazza in Italy, and it's just those. It's one of those places where you sort of like you can't believe it's real, really, and I think we come from a country where the buildings and the structures in our country are very new, and this is one of those places where you sort of go, wow, these people thought to beautify their spaces and decorate them with such beauty so many years ago, and it's really such a pleasure to go just spend time in the piazzas. But in the Piazza della Signoria, you want to go see the Loggia dei Lanzi, and that's where an amazing collection of statues are, including a replica of the David. But as we said before, it's good, but it's not quite the same as seeing the real one.
Something else that you've put on our notes when we were talking about the show is the Gucci Cafe.
Oh yeah, that's there too. You can actually go and have a coffee, or even we had a meal there. And for anyone who loves fashion, they've actually got a little small museum there in the Piazza della Signoria, and it's really Lovely. It overlooks the beautiful fountain in the middle of the piazza, which is the gushing fountain of Neptune, and it's really it's prime position, this Gucci cafe. And if you want to do a bit of shopping, you can do that as well.
Great to know. Definitely going to go and see that next time. So you think about 30 minutes to an hour around there, depending on if you're having lunch.
Yeah, I think, you can definitely, it's another one of those places, it's all about the atmosphere. But if you have time and if you are really interested in the history of Florence, then you must step inside the Palazzo Vecchio, which is right on that piazza as well. And that's the Florence Town Hall. And it's the original palace where the Medici used to live. And it's just, again, it's full of artwork and amazing views as you peek out the windows, and the very, very grand town hall, which is, gold ceilings and paintings, and it's a really wonderful place to go. Most people don't go there actually, but I love it.
You love it. And where else do you think is the next place that we would go and see?
So I guess for me, to get a really great perspective on Florence is you need to visit Piazzale Michelangelo, and that's up just outside of the San Nicolo district, and it's a bit of a trek up there, which I recommend doing because you get a really nice views of the city as you go up, and you go past a beautiful rose garden, and you get up to the top of this piazza, and it's just sweeping views of Florence. You can see the churches, the Santa Croce, the different districts. You see the Duomo rising, you see the Palazzo Vecchio tower, and it's really, you can see Florence laid out before you, spread across the two banks of the Arno, and it's really beautiful, and it's a great place for photos as well.
Yeah, and if you go just at that sunset, just before sunset, and you see all of that and you see the sun coming down through, it actually adds a beautiful colour across your photos, and you can see the Duomo with that, it's sort of that orangey colour coming down, and it's just beautiful.
It's it's just that Tuscan light, isn't it? And it's really hard to describe it. It's sort of like a glow from the sun, and and it just light bounces off the buildings and off the river, and it's a very, very magical spot. And if you want to go up there, again at dusk, there's a cafe there, but it's not great. But if you go there at dusk and then take a walk down the hill back down there's some excellent restaurants down in the San Nicolo district, and it's not a far walk at all. It's maybe 20 minutes, but there's also plenty of taxis and buses to get there if you don't want to walk.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a must-see. And if you're a photo enthusiast and you want an amazing photo, definitely just at that, go a little bit earlier than sunset, because you want to sort of get your positioning and have a look and enjoy it. So really, really a must-do thing in Florence.
So, Josie, Florence there's all these attractions and there's so much art and culture, but what are the experiences and the feelings that you want to get when you go to Florence?
I think it's about sitting down and just enjoying it. So again, like we do in Rome, it's about, I love people watching. And Florentines are an amazing people to watch. And to sit and have a drink and just relax, or have a gelato, or have a plate of pasta at lunch, and really just soak up that atmosphere. Walking around, it's just easy to get around, experiencing the different people and food. It's just a really magical place. As you said it, I think the light sparkles on it. And I feel that as we're walking around, you slow down a little bit. I find that Rome's probably a little bit faster. Mm-hmm. And also you'll find that the Florentines around August leave. They've all got beach houses, so it becomes a bit quieter with the locals, but still a lot of tourists. So be aware that it's still a tourist hub and there is still a lot of people out.
Yeah, it can get quite busy, but I think you're right. The Florentines are very elegant, and, there's a lot of artisan shops there where you can buy leather and, beautiful jewellery. There's some amazing jewellers there, and just highly creative, that take their inspiration from the city that they live in and sort of modernise Renaissance pieces. There's some beautiful perfume shops. So I love to go shopping actually in Florence.
Yeah, I think we've definitely, I must admit, I've definitely bought a leather jacket. And look, you know what? It's about walking around and just talking and seeing. And I think the art bit of it, I think the history and the artisan culture that they have there, that underlying amazing different, even I'm into oils, and you can go get some beautiful oil as well, and wine from there. So again, as you experience, I mean, this is Florence itself, but when we talk about Tuscany as a region, even when you sit there, you're getting really amazing wines when you're sitting there, because it's coming from that Tuscan region coming into the city.
Yeah, I mean, the food is incredible, and it's different to Rome, so and Venice, obviously. So you know, it's a great idea to go and taste all the food wherever you are, and the wine, and really try the local wines. But yes, I think Florence is one of those places that stays in your heart forever. And then a lot of people, their favourite city in Italy is Florence, and I can understand that, because it's just so compact, and it's just a concentrated essence of Italy almost. That's how I feel about Florence. It's got that, it's very refined cultural part of Italy that you kind of expect. And so you can never stop me going back from Florence either.
No, it's very sophisticated, I call it. So I think that's definitely somewhere that you definitely add on your itinerary. As a first timer, you definitely would go there.
I think so too. So if you have any questions about visiting Florence, feel free to ask them on our free Italy travel planning Facebook group. I've put a link to our city guide for Florence in the show notes as well, and hopefully that'll help you plan your time there.
And in our next episode, we're going to be talking about tipping in Italy, the cultural expectations, and when and how you should tip.
Wow, I know a lot of people want to know the answer to those questions, as we get them regularly. So don't forget to subscribe to the podcast for all the latest episodes, and grazie. Thanks for listening.
Ciao.